When many people think about important voices in the history of Unitarian Universalism, the name Ralph Waldo Emerson is often among the first mentioned. Emerson and his writings greatly influenced generations of our religious ancestors, and many of his ideas still shape our understandings of spirituality today. In 1841, Emerson published an essay titled Self-Reliance. What follows is an excerpt from what he wrote, adapted to have more gender-inclusive language for today. Emerson wrote this: "To believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all, that is genius. Speak your latent conviction, and it shall be the universal sense. For the inmost in due time becomes the outmost. Familiar as the voice of the mind is to each, the highest merit we ascribe to Moses, Plato, and Milton is that they set aside books and traditions and spoke not what others thought, but what they thought. Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. Accept the place that divine providence has found for you. Society everywhere is a conspiracy against the personhood of every one of its members. Society is a joint stock company in which the members agree for the better securing of bread to each shareholder, to surrender the liberty and culture of the eater. Self-reliance is the antidote. What I must do is all that concerns me, not what people think. This rule, equally arduous in actual and in intellectual life, may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. The truest person is one who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of the self." The words of Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Our next reading is from a lecture titled Anatta and the Four Noble Truths. It is the words of Buddhist scholar and teacher Gil Fronsdale. People are often perplexed by the Buddha's teaching of anatta, or not self. One reason is because in different religions and schools of philosophy, as well as in everyday language, the word self is used in many ways. A metaphysical definition of self is any theory of the real nature of self. For example, a permanent abiding essence that survives death, or a true self that is a permanent and autonomous personality or individual. The Buddha clearly did not accept this metaphysical idea of self, because none of us are unchanging. None of us have complete control over our bodies and our experiences. Nothing and no one is permanent. Here in the modern West, there is a long legacy of ideas of the soul, and they derive from the strong human drive to identify with certain things as defining what the self is. We identify ourselves with our thoughts, feelings, consciousness, autonomy, personal characteristics, and with a sense of continuity. Held lightly and provisionally, such identifications may be useful. Held tightly, they are self-limiting. If we expend the energy to cling to anything as the definition of the self, we will sooner or later suffer. In order to find a deeply abiding peace, we need to learn to let go of any attachment to self-identity. Contrary to popular conception, we have no record of the Buddha ever saying, "There is no self." In the entire preserved volumes of the Buddha's discourses, in only one place did someone actually ask the Buddha, "Is there a self?" The Buddha refused to answer the question. As an alternative to framing the spiritual life around the self, the Buddha suggests instead that we look at our experience by focusing honestly and directly on our suffering, the grasping that causes it, the peace or happiness that results from the release of grasping, and the way of living that best supports a sense of well-being. The words of Gil Fronsdale.
We interrupt this program for a special announcement. And now, a word from our sponsors. Today's service is being brought to you by you. Yes, you over there, and you back in the back, and even you right down here. And of course, all of y'all out there on Zoom as well. All of the fun social events, all the exploration activities for our children and youth, all the social justice actions, all the inspirational music, all the engaging discussions and classes, all the opportunities to explore diverse spiritual ideas, and so much more. All of it happens because of you. Your participation and generous giving make everything here at All Peoples possible. As we pass the plates and collect our offering today, please give with a joyful heart. You can also donate to our offering by texting an amount to the number on the screen or going to our website at allpeoplesuu.com. Thank you for your presence, your passion, your generosity, and your commitment to your church community. And now, back to our service, already in progress. So for most of my life, I have encountered people who see life as an epic battle between us and them. Whether it's politics, religion, culture, or racial identity, or just which side of the street you happen to live on in my neighborhood, we humans are really good at creating community by coming together in our commonalities. And of course, at the same time, making other humans into a them. Now, there is no question that group identity meets certain needs that we have. It provides us with connection and a sense of identity and solidarity. It helps us construct alliances and enables us to work together for shared purposes. Of course, this idea of there being an us can quickly become dangerous and divisive when it turns exclusive, when our us is defined by being not them. We see the power of us in action everywhere, every day, for better or for worse. You know, for much of my young adult life, my us was other gay and queer folks like me. In a time when coming out was a really big risk, there was much strength and solidarity and safety to be found in the company of kindred spirits. Perhaps you've had an experience like that too. I know these days many of us are finding our us at things like the No Kings rallies of recent months and other gatherings of resistance, gaining needed empowerment and inspiration when raising our voices with others in opposition to the forces of white supremacy, authoritarianism, and oppression. Forces that have taken over our entire government at this point. I don't know about you, but in many life situations, both socially and intimately personally, I find it really difficult to resist falling into that us versus them mentality. I intellectually recognize that it's harmful, but so often I emotionally cannot help but just go there. My religious values tell me that we are all connected, that there really is no them. Our church calls me to live out of a better, more compassionate, more loving narrative. But man, that is hard to do sometimes. In seeking that path towards larger truth, I have come to believe that my inclination to subscribe to divisive thinking is not the product of buying into some large-scale labels like us and them. It's really the result of very deeply personal ideas that I have, not about us and them, but about me and we. So today I want to explore a little with you how we understand ourselves as a part of me and a part of we. One of the wise theological professors that I met during my years of study at Meadville Lombard Theological School was a man named Jerry Stone. Jerry taught courses in world religions. He once told me that after decades of studying and contemplating the vast diversity of religious traditions in human history, he had come to the conclusion that at the heart of every religion were two central questions. One, how is the me that I experience related to the larger we of life that I know surrounds me? And two, what do I make of that connection? Jerry observed that how humans have gone about framing those questions and answering them and finding meaning in the process differs greatly from religion to religion. We just saw a small taste of that diversity in our two readings that we had this morning, with Mr. Emerson finding great value and holiness in the individual identity, the individual quest for truth and fulfillment, while the Buddha suggested that we step back from that idea of self and live instead in the mystery of a collective cosmic consciousness. Now, many Unitarian Universalists I know these days express an attraction to Buddhist philosophy. And that makes sense. I mean, what is there not to like, right? Inner peace, compassion, enlightenment. Those goals seem to resonate with us. They seem to resonate with us a lot more than things like salvation and redemption and revelation. Many, if not most of us modern UU seem to prefer a Buddhist approach to spirituality over Western theism, doctrine, and tradition. There is a certain amount of universalism at the center of most Eastern religions that connects well to our beliefs about interdependence and the focus of right thought, right action, improving your karma. Sounds a lot like our Unitarian Universalist principles, our approach of deeds, not creeds, right? Trying to be people who live by our values. It is appealing as all that Buddhism may sound to many of us on an intellectual and a conceptual level. I have to tell you that I find very few people in this congregation who are really ready to totally let go of their sense of self. I know I'm not ready to let go of that. In the nitty-gritty of today and tomorrow, in the real life of work and family and responsibilities, the tasks of making money and making dinner and making friends, I find my heart and my mind are really, well, probably following Mr. Emerson's ideas about individuality and self-determination, much more than they are aligning with the Buddha and all that no-self stuff. I may like that notion that the me and the we are one. I may know from experience that striving, grasping for control over life only leads to disappointment and suffering. But you know what? I still do it anyway. When I am standing in a very long line at Kroger's, when I see shop windows down the street from my house broken and businesses vandalized, when I read about the likelihood that our U.S. Supreme Court is going to overturn my right to be married, my right to be married, the me and the we don't feel that in harmony. In many circumstances, it is really difficult to let go of what I need right now, what I want, what I think is right. And I'm not so sure that I should let go of that. Emerson wrote his essay Self-Reliance as a response to the inspiration that he found in the writings of a talented painter, an artist who dared to be different and who approached composition and subject matter with their own unique perspective. Emerson's essay is a plea for you and me to find our own truths, our own vision, our own direction, and then go with it. He believed that reliance on that inner voice was the highest expression of the divine within us. Like many of our Unitarian ancestors, Emerson was convinced that what is most sacred and meaningful is to be found when we each connect with the God-given reason we have, with our ability to make sense of our experience, to decide for ourselves, to express ourselves, to be ourselves. The perspective found in Emerson's writings influenced generations of Unitarians and Universalists and moved our spiritual compass further towards the individual search for truth and meaning, and perhaps further away from a collective and communal sense of salvation. Western religion as a whole, especially since the Protestant Reformation, has concerned itself increasingly with the personal relationship with God and the spiritual life of the individual. Our entire modern society, our capitalistic economy, our obsessions with social media are all expressions of that me-oriented culture. This affirmation of self-empowerment is what birthed our religious tradition to begin with. It is what has driven us to promote freedom and autonomy for centuries now. And it has allowed us to grow, to evolve, to explore, to accomplish great things. Yet self-reliance may be an illusion. Self-reliance always has its limits. When the center of my spiritual life is me, I cannot help but sense that maybe I'm missing something. And hence I desire the Buddha's call to focus the mind and the heart on gaining ultimate connection to a greater relational reality. Perhaps the truth here is not to be found in one or in the other. Perhaps the me and the we, the self and the world, are best encountered not in competition with each other, but in blessed union. Perhaps they are meant to be experienced together. And the true spiritual quest is to try to figure out the balance, to figure out how they work together. When life is all about me, without the we, what happens? Well, we become selfish. We become self-centered, certain that everything we have, we deserve. What we conclude that what matters the most is what matters to me, not what matters to you. We forget that our having and our doing and our being all take place within the larger context of history and relationship. But at the very same time, living totally in that we, without the me, can lead us adrift, can lead us to be lost in a world of other people's thinking, other people's making, giving away our own personal power to choose, to create, to persuade. Perhaps we need to follow the Buddha and also to take inspiration from Emerson, because they are both right. And where we might best focus our minds and center our spirits, well, that depends on what day it is. It depends on what life is offering up in the moment. You know, the other afternoon I was driving home from church. And I don't know if you all ever get on the Watterson Expressway about 3:30 in the afternoon, but it gets a little bit backed up as you're approaching I-65, and I got to go all the way over that way, right? And as I sat at a very long line of cars, actually I'd gotten off the highway and I was at the traffic light to get onto Southern Parkway. I sat there for a long time, and I felt myself getting impatient and annoyed. I had had a long day, and I just needed to get home. I had laundry to do. I had dogs to walk. I really wanted to just relax and sit down and binge watch a bunch of episodes of Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. The me in my car was frustrated and angry. Those other cars, those other people, were in my way, keeping me from getting where I needed to go. But you know, as I sat through what seemed like the third light cycle, yelling, "Come on, people, drive," right? I started to imagine in my head my car as one of all the other cars. And then all the thousands of cars on the roads all across Louisville right at that moment. And then I started to think about all the cars on all the roads all across the country and then the world. And suddenly my quest to get through traffic was not just my burden to carry. It became part of a giant migration of people everywhere waiting at red lights. For a brief moment, I was part of a we, outside of the me. And that gave me just some strange sense of comfort and peace. You know, the next morning I received an email announcing a program that's happening in early September here at All Peoples, a program that our Justice Center Director Russ Funk is leading called Street Protest as a way of creating change. My first thought reading it was, wow, that's great that's happening. You know, we really do need to get organized and be a stronger public voice in our city. Then I looked at my calendar and I realized that I already had a very full list of meetings to attend that particular day. I thought to myself, you know, I'm really busy that day. Maybe I should just pass on this particular meeting. But then I remembered the words of a mother that I heard speak at the No Kings rally downtown back in June. This woman's son was in a detention center and was waiting to be deported. I thought of her pleas for each of us to do whatever we can to help families like hers. I heard her voice in my head telling me that maybe my presence at that meeting might make some small difference. That the we of our shared social justice work relies on me showing up. So I put a reminder on my calendar for September 11th at 6:00 p.m. in our Justice Center to make sure that I would not only remember to go, but that I would RSVP ahead of time. You know what I love about Unitarian Universalism is that it encourages us to consider the me and the we. The me and the we, not in competition with each other, but in blessed collaboration. Our shared values affirm the worth and the dignity of every individual person, no matter who they are. Yet they also assure us that we live amongst a vast, interconnected web of life. It's a web of life that is greater and grander than anything we can imagine. But it would be incomplete without me, without each me in this room. The individual expression of Emerson and the universal connection of the Buddha are locked together in the heart of our faith. Whatever God or truth or enlightenment are, there is a little of them right here, and of course in here too, needing me to make the most of them. And at the very same time, there is also a whole lot of God and enlightenment and truth that is out there in the vastness of creation, inviting me, beckoning me to connect with them. I want to leave you this morning with some questions to consider. When and where in your life do you need to let go of that me a little bit and embrace that larger reality of we? When and where do you find yourself going with the flow too much and not expressing and empowering yourself, not being that blessing to the world, that force for change that you can be? If that me and that we were more in harmony, more in balance, how might today be different? How might tomorrow be different? How might it all be better? Every Sunday, being here at church makes me so glad that me is here. And it also makes me so thankful that you are here too. And this beloved community is all about the blessing that we are, that we create together. So may it be.